Oh, there it is. All right, well, good evening, everybody. This is our regular meeting for Garden City's Planning and Zoning Commission. It's Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. The record can show that all commissioners and staff are present in the room. It's Commissioner Shepard, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Montoya, and Commissioner Weil. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand if able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so for staff, do we have any changes to the agenda?
None by staff, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Right now, our consent agenda contains our minutes from our May 24th, 2023 meeting. But from time to time, we use the consent agenda or we might place some of our hearing items onto the consent agenda if and only if they meet some standards and some criteria that I will get to here in a minute. But usually requires that everything is complete and the application is not bouncing off our code or anything like that. So in that regard, I am going to see, we will hear the CUP item, that's item A. Although let's check to see if we're ready to put on the consent agenda the B item, which is subdivision FY 2023-1. It's Mod Court Townhomes. It's a combined preliminary and final plat. Andrew Wheeler with the Land Architects is requesting a 23-lot residential subdivision to be processed as a planned unit development. Property is currently located at 207 East 45th Street. And the properties are zoned R3. So in order to put it on the consent agenda, I have a series of questions to ask the room. First of all, is there anyone in the audience who would like to give public testimony on that particular item? Again, item B, subdivision FY 2023-1. Okay, that's a no. Is the applicant present? Present. Great. If you could state your name for the record, please. Andrew Wheeler. Okay. Have you had the opportunity to review the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and draft decision document, including the draft conditions of approval? Yes. Do you agree and consent to these documents in the affirmative, including all conditions of approval? Yes. Okay. Okay, great. We can, oh, one last question. Does staff or any member of the commission have any reason they feel this item should be heard?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Brown.
I do have an issue involving a part on this that hopefully it will be taken care of quickly, but I would like to discuss this.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will hear, so we will hear item B then. And then I think we will hear item C as well. So, so our consent agenda contains only the minutes for this evening. So I think we're ready for our motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the minutes of the May 24th, 2023 meeting and recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Montoya. There's our motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, Commissioner Shepard is seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. We'll move to our first item then.
Mr. Chair, I'll just note for the record that I'll abstain from that motion, vote.
Noted.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Wild. Okay, let's move to our first item. Item A, conditional use permit FY 2023-8. Applicant Jeff Likes with ALC Architecture is requesting a industry flex use located at 9297 through 9301 and 9251 and 90 through 9287 West State Street. It's in the C2 General Zoning District. So Jeff, if you'd like to come up and take the podium, and your name and address, please, to start your presentation. And by the way, while you're gearing up there, I should go through real quickly how we will hear each item. I'll have a brief introduction by the chair. You'll have 15 minutes. The applicant has 15 minutes to present. The staff will present for 15 minutes, or they have 15 minutes, and then we'll move to a public hearing, individual testimony for 3 minutes each. The applicant can come back up to rebut after the public hearing, and then we'll close the public hearing, and then the commissioners will have a discussion about the item, and then we'll get to a motion and a decision. So knowing that, we're ready for your presentation, sir.
Good evening. Jeff Likes, 1119 East State Street, Eagle, Idaho, 83616. So we're here tonight, kind of maybe to clear up a few things and to discuss the conditional use for the uses here at the Rock Canyon Business Park. So maybe the history and stuff. We've been in here a few times with design review with the building. We designed a building, realized that the owners finally gave us a condo plat and said, oh, by the way, we have this other building designed. We need to follow the condo plat. So we did that, which is why the building looks how it does today. And design reviews looked at that, and that's been approved. And so there's, in the staff report, it's talked about right at the very beginning. Initially, we were hoping to go for indoor storage of RV units. And because it's condoed out, there's 10 condo units. And initially that was going to be what we did, which is why Hannah wrote this in the report, and we appreciate it. That has been pulled out as of our last submittal. There's no more indoor storage for RV storage at all. It wasn't going to be allowed. It was going to be a tough sell anyways with the conditional use. So just to help clarify that in her report, that's why it's in there and pulled out. What we're going to talk about is more the industrial flex use in the Garden City Code. It's a very broad term. So there's a lot that can go into industrial flex. And so the uses that we have planned for this, we feel are compatible with what is the surrounding residential uses and commercial uses that are in there. And so currently the site zone C2, 2.74 acres, and it's vacant. Our site location, you saw there, is the backside of the Terrenian condos. Jim's Heating and Cooling is back there. There's a dentist placed up front, just to give you some context of where that is. And so the condo units will remain. Are sticking with that same 10-unit condoplex. Building is same footprint as what was done in the condos 10, 15 years ago. So to give you an idea, what we got going on here. Part of this is also landscaping that we've got, and we'll work with an arborist if we do end up revising some of that. Because we do want to rework some of this parking up front to help utilize the uses that we have here. The building itself is designed with overhead doors, storefront glass in front. And that again is just for the uses that we have in here. It's about 15,000 square feet. There's 19,000 square feet already on the site. Existing parking is 132 spaces. And so we're removing 5 spaces with the rework of our parking lot up front. So we have a total of 127 spaces, which is still plenty of parking for the uses that we have here. So we held a neighborhood meeting, no comments from the neighbors. We've actually held 3 neighborhood meetings, 2 on design review, 1 on this. And there's been no comment. Nobody has had any ill effects about what we're doing with that. Like I mentioned, RV storage has been removed. We did propose a development agreement for the RV storage. That has also been removed from the staff report. So we have 10 uses that are going in here, mainly office uses with some storage behind. The way industrial flex works, typically you have storefront up front, overhead door in the back, that gives them their storage in the back, their retail type or office uses up front. Because we don't have a entrance to enter from the back, we had to put our overhead doors up front. And so it's kind of a mix where we're going to have a little bit of office up front and then some storage back down the side. So we have a residential plumber that wants to be in here, just storage of his office and his supplies. We have 2 office warehouses, just that want to do office in there. We have a calendar printing company that wants to be in there. Another office unit. We have a real estate development company. We're working our way down. Another office warehouse, and then a residential real estate brokerage company that wants to be there. 2 more offices, and then 1 more office at the end for that there. So most of it is a small office type warehouses in there that will have. There are a few things we want to cover. Mechanical equipment was in here, 82C24. It will be screened. It'll be very similar to what's already on the adjacent building. In other flex spaces we have done, the mechanical units are actually inside the units, and then just the flues are outside on the roof. So you won't be seeing them. We did add a bicycle parking space. We left that off on one of our, on the latest site plan, but it will show you it's in the north east corner. Like I said, so we're looking to discuss today more or less our the conditional uses for the uses as in industrial flex. We are willing to enter into a development agreement for a specific number of uses or a specific type of use. So we're not in that broader use of industrial flex, so we're not encompassing an auto repair and auto sales, because those all fall under industrial flex, and that's not what our intention is going to be. So we would be an agreement to work with staff on getting that a development agreement if council so chooses to go that route. Looking here, here's just the proposed landscape plan that we have. Pretty intense landscaping plan along the south, which is here, which buffers our neighbors there. The neighbors that did show up, they were appreciative of the landscaping and the way it looked. And then along the north here, we would rework a few of this landscaping island here just to make this better line up with what we've got going on in the front of that. In the staff report, it mentions that we had mentioned restrooms, and yes, this is kind of a proposed layout. This being in the front, they could come in here with their overhead door, little open office area, restroom, office conference room type in the back. It's kind of how those would be. They are condoed out. They will be sold. So the person that buys this will have, they're be invested in the property and invested in the building itself. Give you an idea on the elevations. This matches what was approved. Excuse me. In the condo plat, we did change up some of the materials versus making the whole thing stucco. We did add some metal vertical siding, horizontal siding, just to give it an offset look of what was kind of around there. A more industrial look, we'll call it, a little more in today's age of design. Kind of the side elevations, we did leave some stucco in there, added some stone back in there. Kind of give you some renderings of what this is going to look like. A very high class space, like I said, a very, open, good feel for what's going on there. And so there, we'll go back real quick and kind of discuss the uses. Like I said, that's kind of what we're here for and to discuss with you. Like I said, we don't necessarily, our plan is not to have industrial flex, but that's the way this building has to fall into it. It's mainly offices, like I said, development company, a residential plumber has a place to store his stuff and have his group be there. Next door already on our site right here in this building. And that red roof building is Jim's Heating and Cooling. So our plumber guy kind of fits right in with him and the use that's going on there. We see very similar uses to what's already on this site. That is there. And so I will stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant by the commission? Commissioner Brown?
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. I understand your little about how you would prefer this wasn't being developed under this specific title of industrial flex, and I understand what the conversation is about. But I'm going to address this question to what I think is the reason that we're hearing all of this instead of going through the consent agenda. And that has to do with a comment in the staff report pertaining to setback required for an industrial flex. And I'll read from the report. The report says on page 9 that this may not be compliant with the following requirement. All mechanical equipment emissions, shipping and or delivery or other outdoor activity areas shall be located a minimum of 500 feet from any abutting residential districts. The abutting zoning district to the south is zoned R2, and we can see that right here. And I think we can also see that the distance to those residents is much less than 500. I would like you to address that issue, please.
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, Councilman. So yeah, we've I guess we'll look at this. We'll look at this I guess the vicinity map aerial photo of that. So this is going to be no different than what was built for the Jim's Heating and Cooling building, which is the red roof building. It's R2 also directly behind that. There are no mechanical units right there. So everything is just vented out the roof. So there's really not obnoxious smells. And it's just standard HVAC units, more smaller residential type units for these individual condos.
All right, that's the only question I had. Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? Yep, Commissioner Montoya.
How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks for the presentation. Couple questions. So in terms of obtaining approval for industry flex, I'm still a little confused on just the intention behind that versus going for an approved use for each use. And I heard you talk about service providers, retail, production. In C2, some of those are permitted and other conditional. So are you just trying to get out of having to come back for additional approval for each use?
To answer your question, yes. We're trying to avoid, these guys are ready to go. And so, you know, as we go through permitting and get all that done, just to avoid another 2 or 3 months to get them, okay, finally you're approved. And then, you know, we get into construction. Which is why I mentioned we could do a development agreement. We're not opposed to it. Hey, let's limit the uses to X and let's take out the uses that are not compatible in this zone that fall under the industrial flex zoning code. So.
And then in turn, so within that subdivision, is there any declaration or restrictions that are part of that community?
As far as uses?
Yeah,
there are not.
Or,
no.
Okay. So
right.
you would be able to, as part of the, if there was an approval and we required some sort of declaration as part of this for certain restricted uses too, that could be part of it. So for example, I see in the conditions, the restriction for RV and boat. And so the question that I would have is that, you know, my concern is that you still have roll-up doors. It looks like a storage condo project. So how are you going to enforce the restriction on RV condos?
Well, that would be either part of the approval tonight, saying, hey, we're going to restrict this to no RV, no indoor, typically storage, as we think is storage for a storage unit, occupied office type uses, you know, where you're actually using it versus just a storage facility. We have no problem with putting that in our conditions of approval. And that way it is enforceable later, that if a tenant or somebody decides to put it in there, that's enforceable, by code that way.
And then, so how do you anticipate delivering the building and leaving the vacant spaces? Is that just gonna be vanilla shell or warm shell for future vacancy or tenancy? So, because you don't have it all pre-sold, correct?
90% of it is pre-sold.
Okay.
I mean,
So you know the uses right now.
correct. They're mainly, yeah, that was the uses I listed there. Those are what they've already got pre-sold. Which is that. So yeah, the uses are the mainly the office uses. The big one there, I think, is the plumber. His type storing his plumbing material there, but then he has an office there, does his books there, goes out and does his stuff. That the printing guy obviously is working there. So those uses are already wanting to be there.
And then with potential use as real estate office, do you anticipate any changes to the facade? Because do they want roll-up doors, or are you gonna have roll-up doors in every situation?
Yeah, no, everybody that they have talked to likes the roll-up door. Open it up, have some air. That is what they were looking for in the facility, or the real estate guys that's what they wanted to keep it there. So we don't see any change in facade.
Okay.
Just make everything straight across the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Mr. Wild.
That leads me to my question about the roll-up doors, and that is, and I recognize this is a concept design in association with a CUP application, but those are parking spaces right in front of roll-up doors. So those roll-up doors, as you just mentioned, might be used for, the plumber could use it to bring big and heavy things in and out. Maybe back his pickup, whatever it might be. But those are largely, you can't drive a car or a truck into those bays, right?
You can, yeah, they're 14-foot overhead doors.
Right, but there's a sidewalk and parking spaces there, right? Or am I missing?
No, you mean right here?
Yeah, right. Right there.
Yeah,
well, that one I see that you can drive into, but look at the other ones.
Yeah, so all of the landscaping, I go back to here. Everything, all that, which is why we have revised the landscape plan, is because all of our landscaping lines up in between the overhead doors. And so everything's got, yes, there is parking in front. We actually worked this out we had this discussion with design review staff, or design review board as well, is that, because it's not really made for constant overhead door, that is their parking, which is in front of their overhead door. And so when they need to use their overhead door, they won't park in their spots, use their overhead doors, and then park back in their spots out front. And so, but to answer your first question, all of our landscaping is lined up with our man doors to keep the overhead doors free, so you're not trying to snake around a landscape island.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Shepherd?
That also leads me to a question about the overhead doors. Will each of the tenants have their own parking space? Will that, so they can move their cars as they need to? Or will the public, like customers for other businesses, be able to park and perhaps park someone in or block someone?
Right.
Out?
A good question. Yes, there is a cross parking agreement, right? Anybody can park anywhere they need to. I think we leave the tenants their chance to say, hey, these kind of our spots. We need to get to our door. There is plenty of parking throughout the facility. You'll see there that if someone does need to park, hey, can I get to my door or whatever? But for the most part, I think they'll park in front of their space, because they are going to be individually owned spaces for that. So that's just something that they can work out together as owners of the condos together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shepherd. Any other questions for the applicants? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And yeah, you'll have a chance to come back up and do a rebuttal. We'll move to the staff presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. This is conditional use permit 2023 0008. Jeff Likes is requesting a conditional use permit for the construction of 2 new structures located at 9297 State Street, which is Ada County parcels R8448760010 and R8448760020. These addresses, as described here in the staff report and tonight, are actually individual condominium parcels that were previously platted in 2008. They are the last remaining unbuilt parcels within the condo subdivision. The proposed application is for an industry flex use, and the applicant has submitted a drafted development agreement identifying uses permitted on site, including those identified under the use of industry flex, and allowing for the storage of recreational vehicles and boats. The Garden City use that best describes and allows the storage of RVs and boats would either be storage facility or yard, storage facility self-service, or storage yard commercial recreational vehicle, depending on how the site should function. With tonight's conversation, it is pretty evident that the use of storage essentially in all of these condo tenant spaces is no longer going to occur. With that being said, however, it was already not permitted to occur because the uses of storage facility, self-service, storage yard, storage facility, commercial recreational vehicle, those are all not permitted within the C2 zoning district. The exception essentially is that the use of industry flex does allow for a storage facility within it. But it does not allow for the self-service storage of personal recreational vehicles or boats. The applicant has since decided to dissolve that goal to have the self-service storage within these condo tenant spaces. And it has also nullified the drafted development agreement, that which was submitted as part of their project. As such, based off of these preliminary conversations right before the hearing between myself as staff and the reviewer and the applicant, I did not review the development agreement and I just put it to the side. It has been brought up a couple times here tonight, and that the applicant is willing to do some kind of development agreement to limit the uses further within that industry flex use. And I would like to say that instead of using a development agreement, which would have to be tied to a rezone application, the commission tonight can just further limit what is allowed under that industry flex use. So for example, within the industry flex use, it does allow for storage, but the commission tonight can condition that storage is not permitted within that umbrella term of the industry flex use. During discussions with the design review committee, the applicant did mention that they had intentions of adding bathrooms to each of these tenant spaces to allow for a more flexible client base. With the addition of restrooms, it would further support their cause or their argument as to not having these tenant spaces be storage, but rather it be a legitimate commercial facility in which tenants would occupy and have the public enter potentially. The floor plans that were submitted just didn't show those restrooms. So if that is the intent, the floor plans that were submitted just did not show the restrooms. As far as the purpose and the function of industry flex goes within the C2 zoning district, code states that activities that are more compatible with a mixed use or residential in nature and minimally disrupted to the neighborhood should be located within the C2 zoning district. There may be conflict between the different types of uses that are going to go within these condo tenant spaces, especially considering the single family dwelling units to what I will refer to as the south and the potential heavier use of what industry flex could mean. The applicant has provided a 10-foot wide landscape buffer to help prevent noise, sound, smell, any of the concerns associated with a heavier use from permeating into those residential backyards as seen on the aerial footage here. Additionally, Garden City Code 82C24 states that all mechanical equipment emissions, shipping and or delivery or other outdoor activity areas shall be located a minimum of 500 feet from any abutting residential districts. There may be potential conflicts between these proposed uses, their functions, and the adjacent residential district, as there is only a 12-foot setback between the proposed structure, which is these tenant spaces, and the adjacent residential zone. I was able to measure via ArcGIS systems, and 500 feet is a fairly large distance. It would actually be across State Street and into the Boise municipality. So whether or not these uses have a 50-foot buffer or a 12-foot buffer, I think this particular 82C24 code needs to be discussed here tonight, and whether or not the proposed tenants can meet that condition. And furthermore, Garden City Code does not define what outdoor activity means. However, with that being said, the site plan does not show a loading zone adjacent to these residential districts. The site plans do not show any kind of shipping or delivery or mechanical equipment to be placed next to these residential homes. So with that being said, additional conditions can be drafted to ensure that those mechanical units aren't placed in the rear of the property, more towards the front or the side. Same with shipping, but that seems like it would have to be out in the front anyways, just due to the drive aisles and the parking situation. The city engineer had concerns regarding the construction of the structure and how it would be built to meet the existing condominium plat defining the airspace since 2008. But as a note, the applicant did return to the design review consultants to ensure that the new structure would meet those plat dimensional standards. And that will be further reviewed at the building permit phase. Many conditions have been drafted to ensure code compliance. For example, the associated design review application required the installation of 23 bike parking spaces, and that has been conditioned in your decision document here tonight. The plans submitted did not identify an off-street loading space when one was required, so it's been conditioned to require one type B loading area on a site plan. One additional street tree along State Street is required. That has also been conditioned in the decision document. And because the existing parking lot is being rearranged, but roughly in the same layout, I believe it is 4 parking lot trees. Essentially, it equals 37 caliper inches of trees need to be mitigated for, and an arborist report will be required for the determination of the health status of those trees for the rearrangement of the parking lot. So in an effort to further limit what kind of uses would be permitted under the industry flex use, staff did draft a potential condition. It is number 3 in the decision document. It can be edited or honed in here tonight based off of our discussions, but that was just an effort to get the conversation going as far as further limiting what kind of uses the commission might want to limit under that industry flex umbrella term. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Any questions for Hannah and staff?
I have a question.
Commissioner Brown?
Hannah, thank you very much for that briefing. If I understand actually I have two questions. The first one, I want to address the one that I asked the applicant having to do with, and you addressed the problem of the 500 feet. And you explained, wow, under this, it's unreasonable, that it's not possible to get 500 feet or by rearranging or anything. What would your comment be with regard? His answer was, well, there wouldn't be any mechanical equipment beyond regular high vac units, which vent out through the roof. In your thought, you're suggesting that we would, if in the event that we approve this, that we put an additional condition in there that would make it specific that no mechanical equipment would be placed behind the building. Is that correct?
Commissioner Brown, yes, that could be a potential condition of approval. I cannot dictate where exactly that mechanical equipment can go or should go. I don't have those floor plans, those building plans, but you can condition as the commission where exactly those mechanical units need to go to best meet that finding.
And that is not, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, that is not one of the drafted conditions that you've already put in the decision document. Is that correct?
That is correct. I do not believe it is in there yet.
And you also suggested the possibility of another one having to do with a condition with regard to the storage issue to make sure that that could not happen. And that also is not in the draft decision document. Is that correct?
Somewhat correct. So I did number 3 under the scope of permit. Say that the storage of personal recreational vehicles and boats is not permitted as a part of this conditional use permit. That is just a drafted version which can be edited and shaped to what we've discussed here today.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Further questions for staff? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So it's time for our public hearing on this. I don't think we have anybody out there that wants to provide testimony for this particular item, but if there is anybody, now is your chance. I don't think anybody was on Zoom. Okay. All right. Mr. Likes, you can come up and do a rebuttal if you would like.
Thank you. Again, just to clarify, I guess your question, Commissioner, about the broad term of mechanical equipment. I think that's meaning not your typical HVAC unit. I think it's meaning more like, I'm going to call it a cabinet shop, big, air handler type stuff where they're going to collect, it's noisy, they're loud, they're big. Typical mechanical units for these type of buildings are not big, they're not loud. And like I said, you probably wouldn't even notice the ones that are on the building next door. They're small residential type units. Some can go inside. The ones that we've done, we put them inside on top of the restrooms and they just heat that area and it's good enough. They hang from the ceiling. So we wouldn't be doing the big, large outdoor mechanical, quote unquote, mechanical units for those type of industrial uses. We're just strictly smaller HVAC units. We agree with if you guys see it fit, you could definitely condition it. No RV storage in your decision document. We're in total support of that. Hannah is correct. We did not show any outdoor storage or any outdoor loading. We don't have any outdoor storage. We're not proposing any outdoor storage. We don't have loading docks for those type of uses. So those uses are not something that we're planning on, not something that we have, we'll call it pre-leased for these units, which is why we don't have it on the plan. And so it fits, to me, it fits into this, you know, more of this zone versus an industrial zone. If we do decide to switch out the trees, we'll get the arborist report. We do agree with that. And then her reports of an extra tree along the street, we'll replace that tree there. And so, but yeah, we just really stand for any questions about the uses and see if we can get that through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. More questions for the applicant? Yep, Commissioner Montoya, excuse me.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
In relation to the uses under industry flex, there is the use for light industry. And when you look at light industry, it really starts to touch on, I think, where you're going with those mechanical units for the use of heavy equipment or machinery and or noise, smells, environmental pollutants, and fire concerns. So if we were to approve the industry flex but removed light industry, would that be of any concern to you?
Commissioner, no concern. Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Okay, with no public testimony and a rebuttal is complete, we'll close the public hearing and move to the discussion among commission members. Commissioner Montoya, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm good with the proposal. I would be in approval for recommending approval with the caveat of keeping in the condition number 3 to prohibit personal recreational vehicles and boats, and then also including the prohibition of light industry in the approval.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wild.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Montoya solved my list making issue. As I'm scrolling through the code, trying to think of everything that can and should be in there, or is pre-leased, and everything that shouldn't go in there. I think he just solved the puzzle.
Yep. Commissioner Shepherd.
Also in agreement with this proposal with the conditions that Commissioner Montoya listed. I also, do we need to add a bathroom condition? I heard that mentioned, but I don't see it on the.
I believe bathrooms are planned in each unit.
Okay.
Yes. Now.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Brown.
I'm in agreement. I had the same concerns, and mine have been addressed by Commissioner Montoya's suggestion. I think that takes care of both the mechanical question, and by leaving condition number 3 in there, I think it resolves the issues that we had about storage.
Okay, good. And the only other thing I was curious about was, does your great suggestion capture everything that could contribute to noise, noxious fumes? I mean, should there be something, a draft condition that sort of captures that, unless that does capture everything? Because of the neighborhood being so close to this, the example came to mind was auto detailing. I mean, what if somebody goes in there and, you know, and does a detailing business, and I would think there would be potentially some fumes going out there, but if that's covered under light industry, then it's good. But I'm worried about noise and fumes, I guess.
So Chairman, how about I read the definitions for
Thank you.
industry flex and then also light industry to make sure that we're covered. So industry flex, the use of a multi-tenant structure for the uses of equipment rental and sales, light industry, motorcycle sales, service, storage rental, service provider, storage yard, vehicle service, or other permitted uses within the zoning district, which it is in. So C2.
Yep.
And then industry light an industry, the use of a site where there may be the use of heavy equipment or machinery and or noise, smells, environmental pollutants, or fire concerns. Light industry typically is for the manufacture, processing, fabrication, analysis, assembly, treatment, and or packaging of finished products or parts. The use of paint booths not related to vehicle service shall be included in this use category.
Okay, very good. Thank you for reading that. Okay, yeah, then it sounds to me like what you all have come up with sounds like the answer. So I am very supportive of the applicant as well. So all right, so are we ready for our motion? Okay.
So Chairman, I move to approve CUP FY 2023-0008 by applicant Jeff Likes with ALC Architecture for the requested industry flex use located at 9297-9301 and 9251-9287 West State Street for parcel R84487600010 in the C2 General Zoning District as provided in the draft decision, with the condition 3 of the prohibition of personal recreational vehicles and boats, and including the prohibition of the light industry from the industry flex code.
Very good.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion second. All those in favor, say aye, please.
Right.
Aye. Aye. We don't have any nays, so good to go, sir.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to item B. SUB FY 2023-0001 Mod Court Townhomes Combined Preliminary and Final Plat. Andrew Wheeler with the Land Architects is requesting a 23-lot residential subdivision to be processed as a planned unit development. Property is currently located at 207 East 45th Street, Ada County parcel R27345000592 and R27345000593. These properties are zoned R3. So, Mr. Wheeler, all right, yeah, name and address before you start your presentation, please.
Andrew Wheeler, 2923 North Arthur Circle, Boise, Idaho, 83703. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you for your time tonight as we present Mod Court Townhome Subdivision. I'd like to give a special thanks to Hannah and all the staff and design review that really helped us work on this project. You know, it's been a long time coming, about a year working on this, and we feel we put together a package here that really supports the vision of Garden City and how we all want to see this city grow. Let's jump into it. So the site's located in between Adams, North Adams and West Shinden Boulevard, and it's right on the buffer between the C2 zoning and the R3 zoning. So we're right on that fringe point there. To the northwest is East 45th Street, which is what the project is addressed off of, and to the southeast is East 44th. You can see in the aerial, the context that we have detached manufactured homes on the northeast as well as the southeast. And then a single family detached home on the southwest, which is immediately adjacent to commercial and light industrial. To the northwest, we also have additional R3 single family detached homes, which again further pushes into some industrial and commercial uses. The property is located under a quarter mile of mass transit. It's only 0.15 miles from the 45th Street Northeast corner bus stop. So there are available options for mass transit, which we all want to see, as well as the additional 2 cars per unit that we've provided in covered garages. Some existing photos to get a feel for what's going on at the site. So this is in the southwest, the northwest corner, looking south on East 45th Street. So the area is ripe for revitalization. You know, there's a lot to be built up around there, and as that growth continues, we've seen a lot on North Adams Street, and that's being pushed more into this direction. This is looking east across East 45th Street. This is in the southwest corner, looking east, You can see the manufactured homes to the north and to the northeast, the dilapidated fence to the right. Looking north on East 45th Street. Further into the site on the east side, a closer look at that manufactured housing. And then looking north about center site at the northern manufactured homes. And this is on the eastern end, looking west. You can see the existing irrigation ditch here where the photo's taken. So on the existing site conditions and looking at the irrigation, there is an irrigation ditch that runs directly through the middle of the site. It does impede any efficient development of the project. We are proposing to tile over that, but keep the same inlet and discharge locations, so that won't affect any users. In our neighborhood meeting, we had 3 of them, and there was one lady that showed up in the final one. Her only concern was if her irrigation water was going to be impacted by our development, and it's not. So, and she was in support of the project. This is our proposed gravity irrigation line that's going to run from the east to the north side of the property and then back down to that same discharge point. So in looking at the zoning, as mentioned, it is R3 zoning. I have my pointer here to kind of point you in this direction. So we're kind of right in this area, right on that buffer. And we're proposing R3 zoning. So we're not asking to change the zoning. We're presenting a project that meets the current zoning of what is in place. Now, the future use is mixed use commercial, which is, light industrial, retail, commercial. And we feel that a dense project like this in R3 zoning will provide the residents that will support those businesses economically and make Garden City a vibrant area for businesses and residents alike. This is the proposed site plan. So East 45th Street is north-south here. We have our main drive aisle that comes in down the center. Permeable pavers has allowed us to utilize a lot of open space and maintain that open space that's used by all the residents. That turns into alley loaded parking. So we're keeping porches on the front. Should be noted that in our design review hearing, it was said that this was kind of a poster child of what Garden City wants to see from a site layout perspective, new urbanism, hide the parking, keep open courtyards, in front of the units. Parking for each unit is a 2-car garage. We have guest parking centrally located. So whether it's a relative or a friend coming over, there's no bias to what side of the site they're parking in. Our site amenities include a covered shed roof gazebo open to an adjacent green space. We have ample bike parking of 12 bike stalls, which is well above what's required. And these 2 open courtyards here in the center allow residents to have great connectivity, shared community, interact on a day-to-day basis, and really build that sense of community that we all want to see in a development. As far as open space, this is a graphic that shows what we're counting towards our open space. We're at 10.6%. So we're slightly above what's required. But in a project where we're combining all these connectivities, amenity spaces, rear alley loaded, double garage parking, we feel we've achieved a balance between providing the requirement and a quality space to live. Now, the area that is outside of the setbacks is shown in red here. So the area in red is what is open space outside of setbacks. The blue is the perimeter setbacks. The green would be the right of way, and then the yellow is the building setbacks, with the white as a common lot. A variety of housing is something we worked on a lot with the city. I mean, at Garden City, it's a big issue. They want to see diversity. What we feel we've done here is take a very public space in the yellow on the urban front of East 45th Street to more of a private space. So type 1, we have these urban street frontage type of feel. You can see large windows. It has more of an office commercial type of feel. We do have offices designated for these units at level 2, which we'll talk about in a moment. Type 2 is a little bit more private, but still slightly public, with these public courtyards that residents are facing into. And then we have type 3, which is more of these private patios in the back here. And this whole north, east, and south are all bordered with a 6-foot line of fence. So to improve the existing conditions of the fence currently and to provide that privacy and security for the residents. In addition to that, we have duplex and triplex structures that you can see for added diversity, as well as each building we have 4 different types, only 3 shown here. Each building has its own color palette and material palette, all utilizing the same materials, but a different color and same architectural form. So gable roofs, shed roofs, and other modern elements of metal roofing to speak the same language, but provide a different aesthetic in each building. Looking at the floor plan, we also vary that as well. So here we have, a kitchen. This is building type 1. That's going to be that 45th Street frontage. Detached island for the kitchen here, a U-shaped kitchen here. This is the second level where that office would be located here instead of a bedroom. Some units provide a walk-in closet. Some have more of a standard closet. Some guest baths are double vanity. Some are single vanity. Some have showers. Some have baths. So offering a variety of options of products to the marketplace. We also have double height spaces in the units. So here, this would be open to below with this large U-shaped stair. Again, detached kitchen island. And then here we have an L-shaped stair wrapping a nook for a work from home office desk on the ground floor. So not a full dedicated office, but the space to hold an office location. Level 2, this is that open to below space, letting in a lot of daylight into the unit, allowing tenants to feel that connectivity to nature. Again, at building type 4, similar to here, we have an open to below, and then we have a patio, a secondary private patio, in addition to the main entrance. So this would be the courtyard they would access the main entrance on, and then they have a second private courtyard. Level 2 showing that open to below. Now the materials on the project consist of horizontal siding, stucco, hardy board paneling. So this would be hardy board paneling here, horizontal siding, stucco, and brick. And we have 2 different kinds of brick. We didn't want to have 4 different kinds of brick and have it be a boat show of brick. So there's cohesion there between the complementary brick colors. This would be mirrored on the other side with that drive aisle in the middle. The roof is asphalt shingle with metal standing seam at the entries, and then these popped up elements would also be metal standing seam, which allows that combination of traditional modern to the Garden City is fairly indicative of Garden City. Here's an elevation of looking at building type 2. That's what the courtyard elevation would be. And also note that each door, has a complementary color that really stands out. It acts as a sense of wayfinding, of guidance for people. If I live in the blue door, or whatever that will be. So I think there's an added wayfinding benefit to how we've achieved the color palette of the building. A third element of the buildings, we have some with flat parapet roofs. These are the private patios up towards the east end. So that adds again to that architectural variety. This is building type 4 that would face into that courtyard as well on the south side. Now here's a rendering looking across East 45th Street. And you can see how much glazing is on here. I mean, it really does have somewhat of an office feel to it. These end units, this is 3 units. The end units here and here would have that dedicated office on level 2. You can see we have on-street parking. 1 stall we are dedicating towards our account, but we do have 3 additional stalls above that, which are not counted or shown in the file. Here's a similar view, but an aerial image of that looking into the project. Here are the courtyards that you see between buildings type 2 and 4. The urban frontage, permeable paving walks, USPS central mailbox. And now view looking west on the east end. These are those private patios. Here's that storage. And one of the things to note during our design review, which we worked extensively with DR on, the terminus view is really important here. And so we worked with a lot of different options to see, what could that be and what should that be. So here we're showing a proposed covered gazebo, shed roof, match the architectural language of the project, but allow it to have a community space. So here you can see that there, terminus view, USPS box here. And as we look a little closer into the courtyards, here you can see some bike parking, just a really nice space. We chose to instead of making this all parking, bring the parking island out, extend that courtyard as much as we're able to and into those permeable pavers. So here's that view that you would see as a close-up as you drive into the project, which we feel does a great job from a terminus view perspective. High quality materials. This entire base is all brick. One thing to note, these garage doors have glazing on them. That came up in DR as a requirement, which we're intending to do. This is just didn't have time to update the rendering, but that is the intent. We did submit elevations that show glass lights in the garage doors. But again, transom windows, a lot of glazing, quality project. So in summary, this is a vibrant residential development that provides great amenities, open space, connectivity, a new urbanism layout. And I urge you to see the potential of this project and to approve its realization into the city of Garden City. to provide the needed housing that is so desperately needed. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, sir, very much. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Brown?
Mr. Chairman, since I'm the one that said I wanted to discuss something, I'll cut to the chase and maybe we won't spend too much time. My question arises because of the engineer's report, the city engineer, Mr. Canning. Have you read his report?
I have, but I've read a lot of documents on this project, so maybe you could
I want to make sure. What I'm concerned about is having to do with the FEMA flood maps and his comment. First of all, may explain why this is a serious issue. We're in what's called a seclusion zone with regard to redoing our flood maps in Garden City. And in his evaluation of it, he already cautioned you, which I'm sure that your engineers recognized, as the requirement is not to go plan your elevations based upon the current maps, the 2020 maps, but based upon the draft maps that were done in the most recent study. And in that, he writes the following. We note on sheet C4 of the construction plans that the base flood elevation is listed as 2645.3. However, the FEMA work maps, which would control what you have to design this at, show the base flood elevation as approximately 2648. I'm a professional engineer, and I can tell you that that is quite a big discrepancy. It's almost 3 feet, and in that particular area. So my question is, have you looked in, or have you any knowledge about what the issue is involved? Is that some kind of an error, or what do you know about that?
Well, at the end of the day, we're going to have to meet the FEMA maps, correct? Or revise them, which is quite the uphill battle. So I do not know why that number is below the FEMA map standard, but it could be an issue that we can resolve and as we move forward in the project.
So you acknowledge, then you would understand the way it's conditioned in the draft report, in the event that we recommend approval of this, it's apparent, it makes it apparent that you would have to comply with that. So you understand that, is that correct?
Yes.
Is what you're saying? Yeah. All right, thank you. That's the only question I have.
Okay.
The rest of them.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Wild.
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you for the excellent presentation. We wrestle on this commission with the phrase variety of housing types a lot. And this is actually the application, the first one I've seen that actually seems to check all the boxes of what my brain thinks a variety of housing types is. So I just want to say thank you for that design and the presentation.
Awesome. Excellent.
Okay. That's all. Great. Thank you. Yeah, you'll have a chance to rebut too. And one thing I forgot to say, you said the 3 words that I should have said up front. What we do tonight is just recommending to City Council. We're not approving this. So we'll send a recommendation to City Council. So I just wanted to make sure I put that on the record. All right.
Sure.
Ready for our staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. So this is subdivision fiscal year 2023-0001. It is for Mod Court Townhomes. The application consists of 2 separate parcels totaling about 1.38 acres, which is to be subdivided into a residential subdivision processed as a planned unit development. It consists of 22 townhomes and 1 common lot, and it proposes access to and within the property via a common drive with an entrance on East 45th Street. The proposed density of the project is 16 dwelling units per acre, and it is located within the R3 high density residential base zoning district, as well as the mixed use commercial future land use designation of the comprehensive plan. This application appears to conform with most of Garden City code, the Garden City comprehensive plan, and other pertinent plans that the city has adopted, and there is no public opposition to date. The design review consultants approved the updated site plan on May 23rd, 2023, with 2 additional comments, which have since been included in your decision document to be consistent with their recommendation. Although the new site plan has been recommended for approval by design review, the updated landscape and common open space plans, as well as civil plans, were not resubmitted to match that updated site plan. But based off of review of the new site plan, the application still seems to be pretty compliant with the Garden City Code, with the exception of a few sections which have since been drafted in the decision document to meet code compliance. Per the application's narrative, the development intends to meet the planned unit development's variety of housing requirement by providing a variety of 2 and 3 unit structures with 4 different building types. Floor plans that have been submitted do have slight variations within them, as the applicant has presented here tonight in the presentation, but all units consist of a living room and a kitchen, as well as a dining room on the 1st floor and 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor with a 2-car garage. A section of the planned unit development code requires that any development that proposes more than 10 dwelling units, it shall provide a variety of housing types. So whether it be through a use of attached units like townhomes and duplexes, detached units like patio homes, single family or multifamily dwelling units, the variety needs to be provided within but a combination of all those housing styles. This application does not propose a variety of housing types in that all 22 units are 3-bedroom, single family attached dwelling units. It does, however, appear to meet the architectural variety requirement of the planned unit development code by providing similarly designed product with different color palettes, as the design review consultants determined. So please note that it is the Planning and Zoning Commission's responsibility to recommend approval or denial based off of how well the application meets the variety of housing types that our community requires. The applicant has submitted waivers to code standards, such as allowing for a greater number of lots to be accessed off of a common drive, and proposing non-compliant parking spaces and amounts. Staff has also suggested a waiver to setback standards. So if you would please refer to condition item 4 in your drafted decision document. It has been drafted within the staff report and in the decision document to allow for discussion here tonight to further hash out these setback requirements. But based off of further conversation that I have had with the applicant, staff would recommend that allowing for a front, a rear, and a side setback to be 0 feet would likely be the best solution moving forward, with the understanding that the planned unit development application or code standards requires that there be 10 feet between structures within a development on top of fire and building code setback requirements to further restrict that 0-foot lot line. So I have here on the screen drafted an edited version of that item 4 or condition number 4 to state what it is I'm trying to say here tonight and what it should look like. We have since received a Garden City engineer comment, which was included in the packet, so it can be found online. It has been available since the 16th. It just did not make it into the staff report. Most comments were general. However, he did note items about the floodplain, which we have since discussed. And then also there were some typographical errors on both the preliminary and final plat that can be addressed at a later date. The applicant has submitted a waiver request to allow for the tiling of the canal that currently exists on site. It is currently running through the middle of these two properties and essentially terminating and being tiled at the 45th Street right-of-way. The applicant has submitted a waiver based off of the fact that the canal will be tiled or is tiled on both sides of the property. I will call it the east and the west side. And the design review is ultimately the one to determine if the tiling of the canal is appropriate or not. And they did through discussion. I keep saying committee, they are consultants now, pardon my habit. But they did recommend that the tiling could be permitted. As previously mentioned, there are waivers drafted. So one of those waivers is that in regards to parking. So the applicant has requested a waiver to allow for smaller parking spaces. So instead of the 10 by 20 vehicle parking space size and dimensions, it's now 9 by 18. And there's also a waiver to allow for a deficiency of 1 vehicular parking space on site. As far as code analysis goes, Garden City Code 84I4 landscaping provisions for specific uses. It does require that the site dedicates 5% of the site to be landscaping. The site plan that was recently submitted is an updated version of what the landscape version is, or let me rephrase that. The landscape plan does not meet the updated site plan. With that being said, they are very similar. So while I was unable to perform an actual analysis of the updated landscape plan, it's conditioned. There's probably not a lot of differences regarding the change of plans. 45th Street requires that there are 5 street trees, which the applicant has proposed 6. But it is important to note that if ACHD does require a drainage swale within the right-of-way to handle their stormwater drainage, they oftentimes require it to be within the landscape buffer in which the city requires our street trees to be in. So if there is conflict between the street trees and ACHD's stormwater drainage, Garden City Code will prevail, and coordination between ACHD and Garden City and the applicant would need to happen to allow for the swale to accommodate the street trees. And that has been conditioned in the decision document as well. And with that, I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for staff? Okay. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Right, I know for this one, I don't think we have anyone wishing to give testimony, but let's ask that question now. If you would like to give testimony on this, now's the time. Anybody out there? Nope. There's nobody on Zoom. So that said, sir, you can come up and address us with regard to a rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Yeah, so to touch on the variety of housing, I think that the intent here is it's to create a diversity in experiences, right? I mean, we want areas that feel different for the tenants that live there, that create diversity in the city. In the fact that, not that necessarily, if we had a multifamily project in here, or one unit was multifamily with detached parking, is that really going to enhance the experience of the project as a whole? So what we feel we've done is the experience of building type 1, that urbanism, front, you're sitting on your patio on 45th Street, right? The experience of sitting in that cottage courtyard when your neighbors across the street, and the experience of that private patio on the eastern side, which does lead to that patio home feel. So even though it's not a detached patio home, it still feels like one. So I think the intent of variety of housing, we're meeting through that process. So let's not get too caught up in the actual product we're presenting, but let's think of how the space is going to feel and how it's going to be used. As far as the waiver for the 4 stalls coming off that private drive, again, consolidation often breeds, the reason we're doing permeable pavers to consolidate the green area so we can have more of that open space. We don't have a big bioswale that's, unlandscapable and, it can't be used as an amenity. So, I mean, consolidating the main drive and then splitting off from that onto those and hiding the parking, I think is a real benefit here. I think that the benefits outweigh the cost of meeting that code provision. The parking waiver, again, back to the consolidation, 9x18 stalls are used very frequently and they function perfectly fine. I think we all can agree that, is it nice to have a 10x20? It is, but should that be at the expense of losing open space, losing landscape? Like, we get rid of that island in the middle of the project there. Let me pull that back up here. Might pull up getting rid of this parking island here would really make that space feel a lot different. It would also be more dangerous as far as cars right next to your pathway that you're walking through, people opening doors, cars getting dinged. Let me go back to an aerial. So you can see here, grab my pointer. The other side of this was, that's that green space here. We also included green space at the mailbox. Try to go back to the site plan. That's going to be probably the better one to look at. Yeah, so here and here, we really tried to, maintain as much green space as we could. In our design review meeting, we were talking about, how do we keep our parking and meet that requirement? And we could have put a parking stall here, but we thought it was more important to put a street tree there, have the landscape, and have that extension of the courtyards throughout. Also to note that we do count 1 on-street stall. If I go back to the main renderings. Yeah, so we do count 1 on-street towards our total, but we do have this space in the linear footage along East 45th to park additional stalls. And the street is currently used like that with on-street parking. I know there's a condition in there from ACHD discussing that could be taken away at a future date. I understand that, we understand that, but we're trying to deal with what we can here to balance all the requirements from agencies and create a beautiful project. As far as the street trees in the swale with ACHD, from my understanding and from conversation with staff, it's really about pulling in our permeable pavers out of that right of way to handle all the on-site stormwater. So that's not at all in the right of way, and we're more than willing to work with and figure out how to make that happen and keep the street trees there as much as possible. So that the intent is to produce 6 street trees. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Further questions for the applicants? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll close the public hearing and move to our discussion amongst the commission members. Commissioner Brown, would you mind starting?
Okay, let me say overall, first of all, I want to second what Matt said with regard to the issue of variety of housing types. I really appreciate it seems that all of these planned unit developments that we've been dealing with for about more than the last year, this has been an issue. And this is one which the applicant did a really good job, I think, of stepping into it. And with regard to that issue, I'm satisfied. They certainly provide more variety than some of the other developments that we went ahead and we approved. And I've said this before. At some point, I realized how much I think our staff does a great job, and they're way overloaded and they got a big list of things to do. But at some point, we need to deal with that particular language that's in the PUD regulation. And so on that, I'm very satisfied. I'm satisfied with the whole thing. My only concern was that thing that was pointed out by the engineer, and I would just ask to make sure that and I'm sure that they will, that the applicant, they talk to their engineer and they make sure that that is resolved satisfactorily. The way that Hannah wrote the draft decision takes care of that if they comply with that, and they're already required to comply with producing a construction plan that can be approved by the engineer, and so that's already set in place. So overall, I'm in favor of approving it with the one addition where we need to add the numbers into it in the motion, that in the draft decision document, they're just X's there. So those numbers that Hannah put up there need to be put into that as part of our motion when we come to it.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I love this application. I think you did a great job. I don't have anything to say about it really, other than it's beautiful. I love the office feature, the exterior part that you pointed out. I know it's hard to balance everything, that all the different agency requirements and all the different code requirements, but I think you did a really fantastic job doing the best you could, and I will. I would recommend approval.
Okay. Commissioner Wild.
I too am supportive of the waivers of the setbacks at 0. And again, I think this is a project that just seems to check all the boxes for me in terms of the variety of housing types. The green space, I mean, it's not a ton of green space, but it's plenty and it meets code. And I appreciate that we're trying to put green space near the parking lot and reduce that parking size. So I think this is a good project. It's good infill, and I'm supportive.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Montoya.
I echo what the fellow commissioners have to say. Thank you for doing a great job. Makes it a lot easier for us when you take care of a lot of the concerns and questions that we have to go through. So appreciate that and make it a lot easier on us. So I don't have anything to comment on. That looks great.
Yeah, and I'll agree with all my fellow commissioners. Since we do like to talk about variety of housing a lot, that was the one thing where I was like, boy, we're kind of pushing it on this one, since they're all 3-bedroom, same layouts basically, but great presentation as to how you grouped them. And that was the thing that really like eliminated that question completely. I was in favor of your project from the get-go, but that was the one thing where I was like, okay, but that was a great perspective and a great way that you group them 1, 2, and 3. And that helped me get to being fine completely 100% with variety of housing. So that said, thank you very much. And let's have our motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wild.
I move approval of SUB FY 2023-0001 Mod Court Townhomes and recommend approval to the City Council with the addition of condition number 4 in the decision document to include lots 1 through 3 and 8 through 22, as well as lots 4 through 7 to have setbacks of 0. and to include the waivers as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Wild. There's our motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Brown, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, no nays. Congrats. You're on your way to City Council. Thank you for your time this evening and your great presentation. Okay. How does the commission feel about a break? Good. Okay, let's do a quick one. We'll get back going at 20:05. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We'll get going on our last item this evening. It is SUB FY 2023-002 Carolyn Circle subdivision, a combined preliminary and final plat. Taryn Mitchell with TKM Architecture is requesting a 12-lot residential subdivision to be processed as a planned unit development. Property is currently located at 3981 North Reed Street and 415 East 40th Street. Ada County parcel R27345600115 and R27345600096. The properties are zoned R3. So, Mr. Mitchell. Oh, okay. Yeah, you could just do before you start your name and address. That would be fantastic. Awesome. And same thing with this one as the last one. We are, whatever we do tonight, we're recommending what city's council action should be.
Can everyone see this?
Yes.
All right. I'm Kevin Hawk. Address is 12044 West Dallin Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83713. We're very excited to present to Planning and Zoning staff today, Carolyn Circle. Just a little bit about us and our company. We are a local company. I'm born and raised here. I absolutely love seeing what Garden City's doing as far as waving in all this new growth and excitement coming in from West downtown Boise, Eagle Star area. I have a lot of extra pride in it as my family has been here a long time. My dad was a local business owner in Garden City. It's now called Rod's Auto Body Shop. So as a youngster, my brother and I used to run around these streets, which probably wasn't the best then, but we're here now, so we made it. Additionally, my mom was actually the first one to throw out the inaugural first pitch at Memorial Stadium. So reason why I wanted to share that is this site is named after my mom, so Carolyn Circle. Starting on the location and use. So right here, we are located off of 40th Street and Reed Street. Approximately about 80 to 100 feet right here to having Greenbelt access as well to utilize. The big thing here is in this area, all R3 zoning and C2 zoning as well. This right across the street from us is where the boardwalk is going in, which is obviously a huge piece in Garden City and is a main anchor staple in this town. I believe they've actually moved some tenants in now at this point, so they're progressing really well, and they're going to feature all of that, neighborhood marketplaces, sandwich shops, coffee shops, which is really going to benefit on our site with being able to walk and utilize all the features that Garden City has. As you can see here, our site does allow us to come from 40th Street to Reed Street, where we do have our road to have a solid flow inside of our site here. Everything that is around us is starting to come up. Next to these sites is 2 projects. One of them is in the build phase, construction phase now, with the other one in the permitting phase. Additionally, around us is a 2-story home located here on the southwest corner, northeast or northwest corner as well. And then around the area is mostly mobile home parks as well. So as you can see, this is our view coming in from, it's a little challenging here, but this is our view coming in off of 40th Street. Different angle of coming off the 40th Street looking east. This is the Reed Street facing south, the existing mobile home that is there. And then this is our west view coming down Reed Street as well. For this mixed type residential, we are proposing 29 dwelling units. The site allows us for R3 zoning to be 35 dwelling units per acre, and we're proposing 29. With that, we do have a mixed type residential, as we're going to be featuring townhomes and apartments as well with this site. Big things that we heard from in working with the design review consultants is they wanted to make sure and have a green aerial view coming into the site. They didn't want that to be a home. They didn't want that to be a parking spot. They didn't want it to be amenity. They really wanted to piggyback Garden City with that river and having a green landscape. And we were able to accomplish that both coming from the Reed Street side with down here of adding extra trees, along with coming on the 40th side with our open space here and a bench as well. Some other big things that we took away from the design review consultants is they really want us to add the features coming off the main interior roads of Reed Street right here and Adams, which I'll get to in our renderings. We really beat that up to show that that is the entrance of those units coming off the main interior roads. The other key components that we did is the consultants found value in having the exterior of the property be the front doors to the site. So what we have done, and we agreed with that, is bring in sidewalks. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. There we go. Have our sidewalks that connect for the whole site to make sure we have a solid flow throughout the whole project. So here we have all of our front doors with all of the garage accesses coming off the main road right here. We were able to reach the requirement on the 3 amenities. Those 3 amenities includes our enclosed garage, or excuse me, our enclosed bike parking located right here in the central part, our community garden beds. And then originally we had our, in the backspace, we had our last amenity. But again, with the aerial access that the consultants wanted to see, we changed that to be the green area. So we located our 3rd amenity into a bocce court here in the bottom left corner. We found value in bocce as that's a popular thing along with pickleball that's coming, and it's able to use for all of our residents, depending on the ages. It's fun to get out there and have a family night, get out there and enjoy the time. A couple waivers that we are asking for, similar to the last project, is our interior setbacks, because we do have a mixed use here. So we're asking that to be at 0 feet. The other waiver that we're going to be asking for is parking. So we are deficient 7 stalls. The way that we see this is we are garage parking for the 2-bedroom units are going to have 2 side-by-side garages, or excuse me, 2 side-by-side car spaces in an enclosed garage. And our 1-bedroom apartments will have a 1-car enclosed garage as well. The other waiver we're asking for is instead of 10 by 20 parking spaces, we are asking for 9 by 20. So chopping down 1 feet. Yes, the 10 by 20 is great, not too far off with being a 9 by 20. The other waiver we're asking for is open space. We are slightly short. We are short 145 square feet. We didn't have any pushback from the consultants on design review with that, and they did give us an initial thumbs up on the shortage, since we were very minimal with it. The last variance, or excuse me, waiver that we're asking for is our landscape. And with that, I have a previous project that we have worked with the city of Garden City and ACHD, and we had some back and forth, and we were able to come up with some good solutions with it. So whatever the staff sees as best fit for that, we are completely open to making sure that we hit the requirements both for Garden City and ACHD on that. This right here just shows the 11 parcels that we'll be having, with the 12th parcel being our common drive and our common lot. Here are renderings that shows coming off on the 40th Street side. So a couple of key components that I wanted to hit on here that the consultants at design review wanted to make sure we touched on is really emphasizing this is the front door access coming off those main roads. And with that, we have beefed up and put windows on both sides along with awnings on top to really designate. Additionally, with that, you can see right here, this is where the sidewalk access will go into the entrances of the other units. Same on this side as well, front door access here with the entrance on the other sides. We wanted to place the balconies inside. The reason being is we didn't want those to be exterior to the neighbors. We wanted those to be inside in our community. Have those located. The doors here are fire riser rooms. And the reason being that the design review consultants wanted those to move in the back for our entrances is for public safety with cars and vehicles. So that is why we're able to maintain that. Again, here's the 40th Street looking in as well. As you can see, the three elevations that we have, we feel like we have a really good blend in this that makes it stand out and really the good variety that Garden City wants to see, especially on that green beltway. Going on to our floor plans now. Since 2020 with COVID, obviously our work life has completely changed with a lot more work at home. And we understand that as a company, and we really wanted to cater towards that. So with our 1-bedroom models, standard kitchen, dining room in here. But one thing that we're really proud of that we did is with our fairly large walk-in closet, we actually designated that as well as a workstation with them that's going to be outfitted. So it allows pedestrians to come on in and use these sites and be able to have their workstations there. Each one of our units will also be outfitted with washer and dryers, so we won't have community spaces for washer and dryers. Our 2-bedroom units will feature standard kitchen, living room, half bath on the 2nd level. Within our 3rd level, having 2 master suites, washer and dryer on the 3rd level as well, where the bedrooms are. And with that, we stand for questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to have any questions right now. I want to wait and I will have some questions, but I want to hear the staff report.
Okay.
And so I'll cover it during their rebuttal.
Very good. Very good. Anyone else? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, you'll have another chance to come back up and do a rebuttal.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This is subdivision fiscal year 2023-0002 for Carolyn Circle. The application consists of 2 separate parcels equaling about 0.88 acres, which is to be subdivided into a residential subdivision processed as a planned unit development. It consists of 7 townhome units as well as 22 multifamily units and 1 common drive, which would be the common lot of the property. The development proposes access to the property through the common drive, with the entrances being East 40th Street as well as North Reed Street. The proposed density of the project is 33 dwelling units per acre and is located within the R3 high density residential zoning district, as well as the mixed use residential future land use designation of the comprehensive plan. Because the application proposes both single family townhomes as well as apartments, staff has reviewed the application for both the multifamily standards as well as the single family attached code standards. The design review consultants approved the updated site plan on June 5th, 2023 with additional conditions. Although the new site plan has been recommended for approval, updated landscape and civil plans were not submitted for review. But conditions have been included in your drafted decision document to keep both of the recommendations consistent. The development intends to meet the planned unit development code variety of housing requirements by providing a variety of 2-bedroom townhomes and 1-bedroom apartments. The townhomes provide for 2 enclosed vehicular parking spaces, and the apartments provide for 1 enclosed parking space. A section of the planned unit development code requires that any development that proposes over 10 dwelling units within that development provide a variety of housing types. This can be met by having diverse housing options between attached units like townhomes and duplexes, detached units like patio homes, and single family or multifamily units, provided that the overall density limit of that base zoning district is maintained. The maximum density limit for the R3 zoning district is 35 dwelling units per acre. Please note that the Planning and Zoning Commission makes their approval based off of, or their approval or denial based off of the based off of how well the proposal meets the variety of housing needs for our community. So the applicant has submitted waivers to code standards, such as minimum setbacks to allow for different setback dimensions than what is stated in the R3 zoning district, for allowing a greater number of lots to be accessible off of a common drive, and for proposing non-compliant parking space sizes and amounts. Staff has also drafted an additional waiver based off of code compliance issues that were discovered through the analysis, which would include the common open space, specifically for that of the multifamily dwelling units, which is essentially, as proposed, they're deficient 145 square feet. The waiver allows for the site to be deficient this common open space as proposed. Other code compliance issues that were noted, but waivers have been drafted, include parking. So there's the parking of allowing for a 9x20 dimension park space instead of the 10x20, as well as a deficiency of 7 vehicular parking spaces. There are possible discussion items regarding the subdivision's landscaping and whether or not it meets the intent of code. For example, Garden City Code 84I5, which discusses perimeter landscaping requirements. The perimeter landscaping is required between a multifamily development and a single family property, or if it's also adjacent to a residential zone. A 5-foot wide perimeter landscape buffer has been proposed between the multifamily development or structures, essentially on the eastern and the southern side of the property, because those are adjacent to single family dwelling units. However, the arborvitae trees are proposed, which will reach about 15 feet tall at maturity. However, the intent of the perimeter landscaping trees is to establish a continuous canopy coverage. And while the arborvitae is technically a tree, per the landscape plans, staff is unsure if it meets the intent of what this section of code is implying. There is also a proposed parking lot of 5 spaces internal to the development. And Garden City Code 84I6 requires that the end of parking lots has essentially a tree to help provide shade and a buffer, and just identify the end of that parking lot or that parking row. The application proposes kindred spirit oak trees at the end of this row, which provide about 30 feet of shade at maturity, but they do not provide a wide tree canopy. There are a lot of different studies behind having a wide tree canopy, most of which include the benefits to the heat island effects and environmental benefits, as well as benefits to people's health and their conditions within a development. With that being said, the design review consultants did approve the trees, both the arborvitae perimeter trees and the Kinder Spirit oak trees within that parking lot. I guess and that's essentially, there are a lot of conditions drafted to ensure that code compliance is met, just simply because we have not seen updated landscape plans to meet that required or that recommended site plan. So a lot of the conditions are just generalized conditions to ensure code compliance. But with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Brown?
Mr. Chairman, Hannah, thank you very much for doing that. I do have some questions. As you noted, the design consultant recommended approval of the landscaping plans the way they were. However, you raised some issues specifically with regard to the perimeter landscaping and the parking lot landscaping involving trees. Keeping in mind that this is supporting of the objective that I think that we have in this area of going to higher density. Could you comment on how the implications of your comments were that in some way that they could be enhanced or changed? Would you have any suggestions or idea about what we might want to consider there? Other than the arborvitaes, I understand what your concern is there. And also how you could effect in that small of an area any kind of a reasonable canopy.
Yeah. Commissioner Brown, we do have or staff references the Treasure Valley Tree Selection Guide. And while most of them do have a high and wide branching canopy system, we do have some more columnar trees involved there. Arborvitae is nice in that it does essentially stay green all year round, and it does provide a much better screening buffer. So it is a viable option. It just is not meeting that canopy coverage. So I would suggest looking at the Treasure Valley Tree Selection Guide and seeing if there are any other evergreen, potentially evergreen that reaches the height of an arborvitae to better meet that standard.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Thank you very much. Move to the public hearing. We do have a request to provide testimony. So when you come up, you'll have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. If you, for the record, just provide your name and address. And so yes, sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong.
I apologize for the accent. I might be more than 3, so I'll try to go slowly so you understand me.
Okay.
Kevin, if you don't mind, I'll use one of your pages here. Number 7 there. 7.
That one.
No, that one.
Yep.
So yeah, just your name and address, please. And thank you for being here and taking the time tonight.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and and city staff. My name is Todor Rasurza. I live in 866 North Mercer Street, Boise, Idaho, 83703.
Thank you.
With my wife, who's here, we own 413 East 40th, which is the property adjacent to this development. I wanted this to show you exactly where we are, is this corner here, okay? We share with the developer and city staff our concerns about the proposed community area, which includes a fire pit, because of the impacts that this would have on both our health and quality of life due to noise and air pollution. This community area will be located right against our back fence over here, right? Our second floor single balcony overlooks the community area. The applicant has removed the fire pit, addressing the air pollution issue. Thank you for hearing our concerns. Nevertheless, the fire pit has been replaced with a permanent bocce ball court, and as a consequence remains the issue related to concentrated a large quantity of people in a single area, with the consequent negative impacts that such concentration will have on residents and neighbors. There will be a bare minimum of 36 people who will be entitled to use the community area and the bocce ball courts. This does not include children, roommates, and potential guests who would also be using the area right behind our fence. Therefore, we have many questions related to the communal area. Who will manage and supervise the area to avoid causing nuisances and affect the well-being of the neighborhood? Who is responsible for the overall safety in the area and the impacts to the neighbors and the residents of the subdivision? Are there any rules related to the usage of the communal area? Rules such as the maximum number of people that can gather, the hours of operation, the type of allowed activity, the type of expected behavior? Who will enforce the rules? Congregating that many people in a single area does not seem appropriate, especially when the area includes a sports court where people, as in many sports events, will likely be loud and boisterous. Therefore, we request the sports court to be removed and to spread out the areas for residents to gather to avoid a large concentration of people in a single area with the consequent negative impacts that such concentration would have on residents and neighbors. If this is not something that you would consider, I would suggest that solutions are considered to minimize the noise via landscape or other. And I would suggest that conditions or rules are set and posted outside for the use of the area in terms of hours of use, number of people, type of allowed activity, expected behavior, etc., to ensure that nuisances to the neighbors are minimized. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you very much. Any questions for him? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, sir, you can come up and provide a rebuttal.
As far as what Hannah mentioned on the staff report, don't really have too much to cover. It's just a couple items with it. Just the one thing I want to mention as far as parking, Garden City recently did go through a rewrite of their zoning code to promote density. So there's always that give and take with density, open space. And we feel like we are checking that box off by having enclosed parking garages for both the 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. As far as the landscape perimeter, we had another project go through that got delayed about 3 months of what was approved here at Garden City compared to what was needed at ACHD. At the end of the day, Hannah and the rest of the staff did an awesome job of working with Greg Korzak and ACHD to come up with a good compromise and solution. With that being said, we are completely open to whatever Garden City and ACHD needs for that requirement of that landscape perimeter buffer. As far as the public hearing comments, absolutely get and understand their concern. A couple of things I want to mention. This is a R3 zoning area. Future use is also R3, which is different when there's just one single family residence on a parcel in this area. As far as the bocce court, again, we had it originally at the back end of the site, but the design review consultants wanted to see that more as a green space and didn't want to see that as one of the amenities. So that's why we moved it to the corner. As far as rules and guidelines with that will be all documented in the CCNRs and HOA as far as when residents will be able to use this type of amenity. Those signs will be posted as well. At the end of the day, you always bring in amenities for those residents to be able to use those. So we feel like with what we proposed and the changes that we've met, We are seeking to check off all those boxes to make sure our residents can use those amenities that we're going to bring in to our site. And with that, any questions?
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? Yeah, Commissioner Brown.
Mr. Chairman, then if I understand your comment with regard to this issue on landscaping, in the event that we decided we were going to recommend approval, you would not be opposed to some kind of a requirement that would require you to coordinate with staff with regard to considering some other type of trees or landscaping in those particular spaces. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, we are open to accommodating and working with both. Yeah, absolutely.
But not something that where we're not, I hope my fellow commissioners aren't offended. We're not really qualified to tell you what kind you need to put in there, but okay.
Yeah, we will absolutely work with the city and ACHD on that.
That's all.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wild.
Just with regard to the public testimony, bocce ball courts are not lit, correct?
They're not lit.
Thank you.
And then I'll dovetail off that also. Can you speak to, I think there isn't any landscaping because of the proximity of that bocce court right up against the line there. Is there any landscaping against that I'm not seeing?
Yeah, we have landscaping located right here along the west side.
Okay.
And south side. And then our community garden beds as well, which is going to be a green feature, is going to be on the north. And then on the east side is going to be the pathway of the fourplex for the pedestrians to be able to utilize either on this south side or north side to get into their units.
And I'm sorry, just for just probably being overly specific here, but what is the landscaping that you've planned against the shared line with?
We have 5 feet of arbor providing.
Okay.
I'll be completely transparent. I'm not the best at landscaping trees and shrubs.
Okay.
But we do have landscaping there and it will be.
Okay. And I mean height. So is that what you're?
Yeah, in maturity, they'll be long.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's what I was after. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Follow-up question.
Yep. Commissioner Montoya.
Thank you. In regards to the public testimony and just on noise, and you indicated that the CCNRs would address some of that. What are you envisioning as being, you know, times of operations and use, and is there going to be some remedies for any issues that arise?
Yeah. So what we envision is sun up to sundown, be able to utilize during that space. Obviously, it's quiet hours once the sun goes down. At that point, since the bocce court's not going to be lit, we don't feel like the residents of the site will be there hanging out, since it won't be lit for them to use in that space. So what we have designated, we'll put that in our CCNRs, HOAs. Another condition as well from design review is that we have bi-monthly check-ins on this site. I live very close to the site. I'm always riding my bike down here. And so the biggest thing to address is, since it's not going to be lit, we feel like that's going to be sun up to sundown of when it'll be able to use for our residents.
Yeah, and part of, I appreciate the testimony, and part of the plan unit development is to develop a land pattern in harmony with land use density. And so I would be concerned as well of having those courts right behind me. And even though I hear what you're saying about sun down, it stays light, you know, quite a while in the summer months. So it seems like it would be a good opportunity to maybe have a time limit so that we can at least enforce it, because I mean, we're at 8:30, it could stay late until 10, and that doesn't mean people are going to leave either. So
yeah, and that's something that we are open to. If the city would like to see us put a hard stop, call it 6 or 7, where in the summertime we do get that great nice weather till 8:30, 9:30, and wintertime gets dark around 4 or 5. If there's something that wants to be set, call it at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, we are very open to that.
Okay. Further questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That said, we will close the public hearing and move to our discussion among commission members. Commissioner Shepherd, do you want starting?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am. Just like the notes that I have about this. Sorry, I'm trying to get to them really quick. I did think I thought it was a little bit close to the buildings. It looked like in some of the pictures there were some really big buildings right there that were really close. So I had a hard time understanding that, but I think I understand it now with the arborvitaes. It didn't seem like there was very much space between the development and neighboring lots. But I think with the arborvitaes growing up to 15 feet, then I think that answered what I was thinking about that. I agree with Commissioner Montoya about putting a time limit on the bocce ball court, just because it does, today's the solstice, and we'll see what time it gets dark. It'll probably be around 10 o'clock. But so I think that would be a good thing to put in your CC&Rs. I know that you said you were willing to work with the city on the landscaping and trees. I didn't hear any discussion tonight about the mitigation for the 52.5 inches of calipers that were removed, but I did hear you say that you were willing to work with the city on that. So I am in favor of recommending approval to city council. I'm grateful for the presentation that you put together. It was really good, helped me understand everything. So just for me to get in here, I had more questions coming in, but you guys answered them so much that I didn't really have any to ask during the presentation. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shepard. Commissioner Wild.
I too am supportive. This is, I think, a good infill project. Probably the greatest concern I have is something that we talk about the least here, which is the lack of 7 spaces, the parking spaces. So I think we sometimes are our own worst enemy in being progressive on infill and density and not imposing those strict parking requirements. So I do have a concern that that's going to be a neighborhood problem. I'm not concerned about 145 feet short on the open space. I'm not concerned about 9 by 20 instead of 10 by 20 spaces, but that 7 deficiency does concern me a little bit. I don't think it's our I hope and suggest that the applicant does in fact impose some use regulations for the bocce ball court, but I don't have a significant concern about that. I live around the corner from the River Club, supposedly that's one of the nicest bocce ball courts in North America. And if the lights aren't on, there's nobody there. So it's just not something that draws people except in the daylight hours. So I am supportive. I like the design. I like the variety of housing types. I like the pretty dense infill project, and so I'm supportive.
Thank you, Commissioner Wild. Commissioner Montoya.
I agree with Commissioner Wilds. One of my concerns as well was parking and just the overflow that's going to be assumed on the street. So that was one of my concerns. But as far as the rest of the development goes, I do support the application. Again, as Commissioner Wild says, I don't know that it's our place to tell you what to put in a declaration, but I would hope that you work with your neighbors to create a neighborly environment. And also provide opportunities for someone to be able to contact in the case of issues that continue to arise or people throwing stuff over the fence or any of those nuisances. So I would think that would be important in your CC&Rs. And at this point, no issues with landscaping, and I'm fine with the waivers.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Like my fellow commissioners, Mr. Chairman, I'm supportive of the development, recognizing that it is an infill project. And I want to address the neighbors. I understand if I was there, I would be concerned. However, the problem we have in this whole area of that zone is zoned R3. And what we're putting is an R3 development in an area that the kind of housing that's been there has been R2. You know, it's been low density instead of higher density, and we're putting it in here. So the size of parcel is something, it's not big enough so you can have what in some places where you have step down, where you have the higher rise ones, and then you have a row of housing that they put in there that's sort of in the medium. There's no space. You can't do that here. And so what I'm saying is I'm supportive of the development, and I'm not able to offer something to the neighbors that are in there that are in much lower density housing. And that brings us to the issue of the bocce court. And then I'm very concerned with what the developer in a position. He had a design in another location. He goes to the design review consultant. Design review consultant says, well, for certain reasons that they have, we recommend that he move it. So he did that. And as a result of that, then it does impact on the neighbors. So I'm not in favor at all of us going and saying, well, he's got to move it someplace else. There's not any someplace else to move it. And it is broken. I am supportive of just what Matt said. I'm counting on them. I don't think that we should put it in there, but I would hope that they would put some kind of a constraint in there and their CC&Rs that they put together and what they do like that. And there will be a constraint. If it doesn't have any lighting, there'll be some constraint that'll be there. And so, and it is shielded off because by those arborvitaes, which brings us, that's what they're proposing to put there. And I have a house we own that we don't live in it that's got some really big arborvitaes in it, and I'll tell you, when they get mature, they do make a good barrier, but they don't make a very good canopy. And so there you see the conflict. And so then that leads me to the other area that was already raised, that having to do with the perimeter landscaping, which is what we're talking about, the perimeter landscaping right there along the side that shows those folks that are sitting right there from this development. And so I would be supportive of us putting some kind of a requirement in there that the developer come back and work with the staff on resolving the issues having to do with the specific types of landscaping that they put in there, but not anything more specific than that. And let them talk, and then let the staff with their expertise work out with them just as they suggested and they're willing to do. And then that leaves only one other issue, and that has to do with the parking places. And I think I've said before, in fact, I know I've said it before, there's really not an objective measure out there that tells us in this type of a development where we're trying to get more density, we're trying to get in these kind of areas of exactly how much parking you really need. And given that, I don't see in this particular site, without totally destroying it, how you get more parking interior to it. So I'm willing to let it lay like it is. I understand what your concern is, but I'm prepared to approve the waiver that's having to do with parking and all the others. And so I guess what I'm saying is the only thing that I would add that's not in there right now, if I were making the motion, was some kind of language of a condition in there that the developer be required to come in and talk to the staff and to see if they can make an agreeable change to the specific types of landscaping that's going to be put on, language to that effect.
Okay, thank you.
If that was a motion, I'll second it. It was pretty close.
It was pretty close. So I've really got nothing to add. I'm supportive of the application. I'm supportive of the waiver requests. I do think this project and some of the other ones we've seen lately, including the other one tonight, is really good for a city like ours. So I'm just generally supportive of what both applicants have done here on these parcels. So and I also just wanted to say again, and everybody said it, but thank you for taking the time to come, and it's added to our discussion, as you could see tonight. So it matters, and thank you for your time. So with that, I think do you want to try and repeat that motion?
Sure.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I will
Commissioner Brown.
see if I can say what I said, and maybe even a little more coherently. Mr. Chairman, I recommend, I move that we recommend approval to the City Council for subdivision FY 2023 #2, Carolyn Circle subdivision, including the findings of fact, conclusions of law, conditions of approval, and the draft decision, with the addition of a condition of approval that the applicant meet with the city staff, city planning staff, to see if they can develop a modification of the specific types of landscaping that are going to be included in the perimeter landscaping portion and the parking lot landscaping.
Okay, thank you very much for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. Commissioner Wild, thank you. All those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
And aye. There are no nays. So recommendation to City Council is on its way. Thank you for your time. Again, thank you for your time. Next item on the agenda is a discussion about anything. Does anybody have anything that they?
Chairman, staff has a couple of comments.
Okay.
The first of which is, I think everybody knows that there are going to be two members absent in August, not in October. And so if there's a third that comes up, if you can let staff know as soon as possible, just so we can accommodate quorum. And then the second is just to acknowledge that the last couple of meetings were long and difficult. And there were some comments that perhaps lacked some decorum and respect, but the city greatly appreciates all that you do, and apologizes for any of the backlash that you may have received. So thank you.
Jenna, thank you for bringing up our August meeting, because I was gonna, if nobody else brought it up, I was gonna bring that up too. We discussed possibly moving that meeting to a week later, and I don't know off the top of my head what that does to noticing at this point. We're 2 months away from it. First of all, is that so we could have everybody here, because everybody's up here is valuable to what we do. I'd like to move it, but I'm not sure if that's feasible, and I'm not sure if anybody else would agree to moving it. So I wanted to talk about that.
Chairman, thank you for that. Nothing has been noticed to date.
Okay.
I think that there's one application that's tentatively penciled in to be scheduled. at this point in time. If the meeting's canceled after noticing, what would happen is anything on the agenda would then be pushed to September. The commission could certainly decide to have a secondary meeting should you choose to do that as well. We might look at calendars sooner than later if we do that though. And that could be done, it would need to be done before the July meeting though. For noticing. Okay. We could send out a doodle poll if the commission wants to go that route.
If I'm sorry to interrupt, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Or if everybody has their calendars tonight and wants to go that route, we could do it tonight as well.
Yeah, I was wondering because so our normal meeting in August would be August 16th. So if we move it to a week later, would be the August 23rd. Not sure if everybody knows if they would be here then, but that's an option for us, and I guess we could decide that tonight, right? You're good. You're
1/3 works for me.
okay.
August 23rd works for me as long as it's a normal meeting and not like 1,000 pages.
Not like last two, huh?
Sunday night, so I'll have Monday and Tuesday.
I hope it don't happen for them.
So it sounds to me like you'd all be good with moving it to the 23rd. So I guess we need a motion to do that, to move that meeting to the 23rd. If we're all saying we're okay with that.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wild.
I will make a motion that we move the regularly scheduled August 16th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to August 23rd at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. Any second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wild and Commissioner Montoya. Those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
And aye. No nays. Great. Any other further discussion items? Okay, we will adjourn tonight's meeting then.
Thank you.